I got my orange soda now.
Orange soda? For real?
Yeah. Have you ever seen All That?
Yeah, I remember that.
Who loves orange soda? I love orange soda. I do, I do, I do.
You hear that?
No.
I played some audio stream running. I wonder if it's going through.
Oh, are you playing like a laugh track?
No, just audio, gentle stream sounds, relaxing stream sounds used for relaxation, sleep, insomnia.
You want some of that? I can get that shit going. I have it muted.
You got it on your end? That'd be hilarious. Let me turn this off. I just wanted to see.
Yeah, let me turn that on because we got the river going.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
what I was saying.
Yeah, it's a nice little Sunday relaxation
Yeah,
day.
down by the river here. It'd be nice if you had some footage of people fishing in the background.
Well, I could do that.
We could do it all. That's good.
Now, can you hear that river now?
I can't.
Can't hear it. Shit. Well, fuck me and call me Sally.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the weird crossover is that that's the audio parts I still haven't figured out yet. What you can hear, what you can't, beyond the microphone.
It's possible that the streamers can hear.
Yeah, I don't. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't really matter.
But next time we'll get like some people fishing and then like a fat guy eating Cheetos.
Yeah, no.
Fade it in and out.
No, that would be perfect. I go to archive.org. I don't know if you're familiar with that site. They have a bunch of non-copyrighted stuff that you can, it's public access, open access shit. But on there, a lot of people have uploaded like their home movies from like the 50s and 60s.
Oh, nice.
And that stuff is funny to stream. I put it to like really abstract ambient music, you know? Like, here's footage of someone's family gathering in 1958. And here's some really weird electronica music.
Dubstep over it.
Exactly. You know, things that shouldn't necessarily go together. Putting those things together is amusing.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. I've used that one.
So this picture here, can you see the picture on mine?
You're not sharing anything.
I didn't know if it came up. My profile image comes up.
Oh
on
yeah,
my
I see
screen.
the image. I see that.
Okay, good. Yeah, that is my friend's senior photo from high school that I found in a yearbook online. And I've decided to make it my mascot for my podcast company.
How does he feel about that?
He doesn't really have a choice in the matter, so
Yeah,
I'm sure he's not surprised, seeing as how it's coming from me. I plan on making some t-shirts and Hawaiian shirts and stuff, coffee mugs, whatever. He's going to be the face of my podcast, so.
That's public domain, right?
It is now, or it will be when I go visit his parents' house and somehow acquire his senior photo from the wall at some point. I'll probably stream it, as part of the podcast.
What inspired you to choose him out of all beautiful people?
Just the nature of our friendship. You'd have to understand that. It'd be hard to explain, but the extent of my friendships with people can really be measured by how much I fuck with them on a regular basis. It's how I show I care,
Right. gonna open my orange soda now.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Where'd you get it at?
This came from that abstract entity called the grocery store.
Nice. When did you go there? Recently?
This was a while back. I bought like 8 cases of orange soda.
You stocked up, baby. That's good.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for winter.
Yeah, it's next month in Michigan, so
Yeah,
in Minnesota,
10 months
Wisconsin,
of winter.
that whole region.
You're in Ohio, right?
Yeah,
Now it does get cold too. I guess you're a
it
little
does.
bit.
It gets pretty bad because I'm in the northern part of the state, so uh, in the snow belt, so it gets fucked up here pretty fast. But
Yeah,
whatever, it is what it is. It means I don't have to fucking mow the grass, so
it's
I'm
nice
happy
when
about that.
grass just freezes over.
Yeah,
More.
I'm good. I don't want to mow, man. I'm done. Is that a stream sound still playing on your end?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good. Nice. Life is good. Okay.
I have the chat open too if anybody tries to talk to us
Oh, good. Let me pull it up too.
about this little
Hopefully,
laptop.
there you go. People will antagonize a little bit.
Yeah, I have this vicious problem where I make fun of my viewers and attack them.
Good.
I think it is awesome.
Microaggressions, man. Macroaggressions.
But then I get somebody who'll come on and like they'll be really like emotional and they'll be like, "Why do you treat your fans like that?" And then it like and then I make the mistake of trying to authentically connect with them. And I'm like,
Hey, that's okay.
I don't like my fans, but
No, you just lead them to believe that you're authentically connecting with them when in actuality you're not. They're not going to be able to tell the difference, you know? That would be my approach at least.
interesting. Give the public facade.
It's all a facade. It's all just made up nonsense.
As Shakespeare said, is all but life a play?
Yeah,
I,
more or less. I mean, that's how I'd like to think about it at least.
you think it is just a play, a giant theater?
I think it's a game, at least it is to me. It helps me deal with things a lot if I can just pretend like it's just a game that I'm playing.
Makes that person a little less committed.
Yeah, I'm committed, but I am going to die, so I'm not committed to the extent that I'm going to be upset when it's time to croak.
Now, we were talking a little bit about attachment yesterday.
Yes, I wanted to hear your views on that. Before that, I wanted to say I'm going to leave probably around 4 o'clock, if that's cool with you.
No, you have to stay.
I'll bring in my intern, the unpaid intern here at Squash Dog Limited.
Oh, I would love to just harass your intern.
Yeah,
Start
well, in
asking.
due time. We are hiring for our summer internship program if anybody is interested.
This is for Squash Dog USA.
Squash Dog USA, well, Squash Dog Media.
Okay, nice, man.
Yeah, so we're
you're
doing our
gonna
summer
do-
internship program. We do it year round. The intern, in the description of the internship program, it says that interns will learn the fundamental principles of a variety of critical scholastic topics, including but not limited to unprolonged sphenography, unabridged uncircuitousness, non-evading proclaimants, torts, vector transformations, vagabond agriculture, and telecommunications engineering, to name a few. So those are just some of the topics. It's unpaid, but it's a 24-hour shift. But
Now, this is for the non-existent LLC that you just
yeah, I
formed.
need to just put up the $100 and file the paperwork with the state.
Now, are you really gonna use the intern, or are you gonna feed her to that dog that you have?
We'll see. I mean, there's an extensive paperwork process. It depends on what my lawyers say that I can get away with, more or less.
What do you want him to do, like outside vector space? And
I really haven't given it that much thought yet, but I mean, it'll probably be some literature review initially, and then once we read about the materials and methods used in a lot of contemporary studies that are being conducted, we'll figure out, what the cheapest things that we can do would be, and just go from there. So I'm open to. I mean, those we're not limited to just those things I listed. I mean, we can do whatever.
might include like reading some philosophy articles or some books or something, and
Oh
producing
yeah,
materials for you.
Amish internships. You know, I want them to get involved in a religious extremist group. Like the Amish. So
Let's form one today.
New Order Amish. New Order Amish. Intergalactic Amish.
Yeah, the Amish, though, spacified.
Yes. They they can't use technology unless it's so advanced that the majority of humans have no idea what it does or how it operates.
Yeah, it has to be from planet Zulu. And then,
Yes.
now,
We can define those terms.
clearly, the Amish cannot create these amazing pieces of furniture that they're actually left by ancient space travelers.
Yeah.
No person could make a cabinet.
Yeah, like the pyramids, how'd they do it? It had to have been some kind of extraterrestrial intervention. And
Yeah.
it's the same goes with the Amish, for sure. Undoubtedly. I mean, there's no way to prove how they make such beautiful pieces of wood turn into beautiful pieces of furniture. It's not possible, man. You can't prove it.
There is an unquestionable connection between that and interdimensional alien visitation. I think we've connected that solidly.
No doubt. And people aren't talking about this. They don't know what it's like. They don't get it.
They just want to talk about the contravirus.
Yeah. Which, as you probably know, the Amish have a lot to do with, Amish biomedical engineers and biophysicists, biochemists. They have underground laboratories, man.
I heard that there is some underground tunnels in Denver International Airport. What do you think about that?
Well, you know who's down there, who's running them. The Amish. I mean, they don't need electricity. They're simple folks. I have been to the Denver airport, though, and it's fucking huge.
Yeah, it's massive.
I heard something about some mural there, too, if I'm not mistaken. Some weird art. I'm not sure if it was Denver, though, but I forget. I have to pay attention. Next time I'll have to check it out, but last time I was there, I just kind of found some place to hide. That's usually my protocol in massive airports, is find the most isolated region of the place. I don't know if you've done much traveling for work or whatever.
I used to. I just try to get away from everybody as possible.
Yeah. People always congregate in these areas.
Yeah, I always wondered about that. Like, there's some physical law where things are supposed to disperse themselves into like homogeneous mixtures, right? And for some reason, human beings just all want to like combine into like one cancerous cell called New York City. So when I go anywhere, I try to get away, try to balance it out. If there's more people that way, I'm going to go this way. This is how I operate.
No, I agree. I like going to densely populated areas, if only because they help me to appreciate my infatuation with, low population density, rural communities and things. I'd never live in fucking New York or Chicago. Go visit, and that's one thing because there's a lot to going on there. I mean, it's sensory overload. You get to experience stuff that you really won't be able to see elsewhere. That I'm not
Yeah,
going to see in some, you know,
it's nice
small
to
ass.
go there and then
Yeah,
go home.
exactly. Go home. That's the point. But long term living conditions, definitely not looking to live in some vastly populated area. And of course, I'm always getting back to the fatalism discussion that you and I had off air. Uh, I'm always anticipating that at any given moment, society is just going to collapse. Part of me would like to see that. It'd be entertaining to see. You know what I mean? As opposed to just living in a suburb and dying in a nursing home one day. It'd be cool to see the complete breakdown of the world as we know it. It'd be dangerous, but it'd be funny to see how people react.
I agree.
You know?
Very refreshing viewpoint. I often imagine aliens destroying Earth, and I think how miraculous that would be to watch it.
Yeah.
It'd be really exciting. And people make movies about it all the time. People love to see that stuff.
Yeah, there's a fascination there that people have with the vulnerability or the fragility of human existence. The planet, it could be wiped out. It could get fucked up,
Would you
People
like
don't
to
know.
would you like to watch yourself die?
Uh, like outside of my body, or like watch myself die from inside.
Like you had a dream tonight and you just got to like watch yourself die and you know it's going to be what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to know because it would eliminate the element of surprise. I'd like to be surprised, like not seeing it coming. It's like some grizzly bear just fucking comes out of nowhere and just rips my throat open. That would be a way more respectable way to die, in my opinion, than of cardiac arrest in a nursing home. It is what
Yeah,
it is, but
right.
you know,
Yeah, I would like my death to be exciting as well.
yeah, and
Spectacular.
especially if there's an increased probability of them not recovering my body too. It just lays out, or they can't get to it, or it just is abandoned. That'd be ideal for me. I don't want any. I don't want any kind of burial. I just want to be dumped out in the woods somewhere and just left there, feed the fungus, bacteria.
I've had some thoughts I'd just go out into the wilderness and just try to make it and see what happens.
Just like literally go out and just try to live off the land, more or less.
Yeah, just go out there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Where would you go? Where do you think you would want to go?
I think I'd probably, well, I'd feed the cats, make sure the cats are fed, do the litter box,
Nice.
leave a note, family member, come get the cats in case I don't come back,
That's nice of you.
and head up there, maybe to Alaska, or somewhere remote, Canada maybe.
Yeah, that would be sweet.
Just find a nice spot, park the car, get out, and just go.
There's dudes like that out there. Have you heard of Hymo Korth?
Mm.
He lives in the northern northwesternmost province of Canada, whatever that is up there. And he's just lived up there with his family, like completely off the grid on his own for the past like 25, 30 years. And there was also Richard Prenicky, who was an Iowa farmer, and he lived in Twin Lakes, Alaska, a region only accessible by hydroplane. You land in on the lakes, and he went out there, built a cabin. He went out in like the 70s, 60s or 70s. I think it was the 60s. Yeah, in his journals he was talking about the moon landing happening and stuff. But he built all of his own like supplies and stuff, a cabin, using very like primitive tools, no power tools or anything. Really cool stuff. People have
There's
lost that ability in a way.
maybe some kind of Amish extraterrestrial connection there.
Yeah, it must have been. Amish artificial intelligence. You just get an Amish robot, take it with you, and then they construct the cabin for you and do all of the survival-esque activities that we've, you know, neglected to remember how to do as we've become increasingly more civilized. This seems to just all keep getting back to Kaczynski's industrial society and its future here.
Yeah, it does. It all always comes back to the Unabomber.
Dr. Kaczynski. I like to send people Industrial Society and Its Future by Dr. Theodore J. Kaczynski, the audiobook, and just not tell them what it is. Like, here, give this a listen. Let me know what you think.
I mean, his name's Theodore. Like, it's time to pay attention.
Yeah. That gives him some level of credibility right away.
Put your listening cap on. It's Theodore, Dr. Theodore Kaczynski.
Exactly. Like, hey man, I'm working on this right now. Can you listen to this for me and give me your honest opinion?
That's an interesting thing because he is undoubtedly a lot smarter than most people, right? But he was a bad man.
I mean, I find his perspective intriguing. I disagree with his execution. You know,
Was executed?
his methodology.
Oh yeah.
You know, his
Right.
manner of behaving. I don't really agree with that. I thought it's a fascinating read, but the one line from the intro that stands out is if the system breaks down, the consequences will still be very painful, but the bigger the system grows, the more disastrous the results of its breakdown will be. So if it is to break down, it had best break down sooner than later. And I think about that in the sense of people and their cell phones, you know, it's like, could you imagine if fucking power went out for 2 weeks or like people's cell phones stopped working? Like, people would freak the fuck out and it would be hilarious to watch. But I just hope that I'm not in a big ass city when that's going down, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like right now with coronavirus, man, where everybody around me is very concerned with the external world. And when we first entered quarantine, I made a direct commitment to focus on the internal universe for the entire quarantine, and then it appeared quarantine would last forever. So then I said, these inner principles, I should be inventing these in perpetuity. As I've been inventing these, like I'm reading philosophy every day, I'm working out every day, I'm recording music every day, I'm on fire, my hair turned red.
Exactly.
And I'm just like on a tear, but I'm looking around and like people are like watching the news, be afraid. They're glued into their phones. They can't move. They can't get out of bed. They can't do anything. They're imprisoned, man.
I love it. I support their want to do that. If you want to stay in bed all day and look at your phone, hell yeah, man. Do it up. Please don't try to get in my way, in my ability to read philosophy and lift weights in my garage. But if you want to be a lazy piece of shit, man, do it all day. But just don't try to structure a society where that's the norm and people have to do that kind of fucking thing. Like, but do it up. I love it. You want to be lazy. You want to be scared shitless. Have fun. Do it up.
Yeah, and I actually won't judge that person for that because I've spent a lot of my own time doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm just not doing that right now.
That's good. It's funny that you took advantage of this opportunity, the quarantine and everything, to elevate yourself to new levels of personal inquiry and creativity and things like that. Because it would have been a prime opportunity to just shut down. Fuck this. I can't go anywhere. I can't go get wasted at the bars and piss off and do all this fucking crazy shit. And what am I going to do? Just watch reruns of, Seinfeld and beat off all day, like there's nothing to do. But you took advantage of it. That's good. A lot of people, I mean, a lot of people did that, but a lot of people would be intimidated and just kind of be frozen in place.
Yeah, and it's our birthright. It's accessible to us at any time in any condition, to do that.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot too about people working because I got laid off.
Oh.
And a lot of people got laid off and stuff, and a lot of people are not working as much, and they're not handling it very well, man. Like,
no.
Dude, take away people's ability to work, take away their daily structure, their daily routine, their goals and objectives, and being controlled by another person. Wagey, getting cagey.
Yeah.
You open up the cage, and these people step out of the cage. They don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
And just look around you. They're rioting, killing themselves. I think Pornhub has had an explosion of
yes.
term, and it's like, nephew has coronavirus.
Oh yeah, it's a whole thing.
It's like, what is everybody doing? I like that question, man. What are you doing? And I asked that to myself, the royal you, including me. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's one of the fundamental tenets of my podcast is like, what are you working on? That's really the question I want to ask people. Is like, what are you up to? What have you been working on? What projects have you been pursuing? What are you pouring your energy into right now? Whether you're conducting, research for your PhD in electrical engineering, or you're writing music, or reading philosophy, whatever, like, what are you working on right now? And that's what I'm interested in a sense, because I want to hear about people who feel motivated, and I want to encourage other people to feel motivated to just not necessarily sit around and do nothing all day. But if you want to do that, that's fine. But yeah, a lot of people have had their lives severely disrupted. I agree. But that's why I tend to advocate for a sense of personal malleability, just to kind of be prepared, because you never fucking know what's going to happen. You got to adapt, that's the nature of, ourselves as biological organisms. You got to adapt to your environment, or you're going to get fucked up,
It's adaptation and evolution.
Yeah.
And you can't depend on the external.
No.
It's always changing, but I've been really interested in building internal structures that are persistent, because I notice that the internal changes a lot in me. And some of the Stoic philosophy I'm reading recently is exploring more firm inward positions that don't change, which has been very helpful.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yes.
No, I can get into that.
Yeah.
The issue that I seem to face a lot is that I want to do too much. And I got to fucking slow down and focus on a couple things, I can't do everything at once. All my interests,
Where does that come from? Why are you doing that?
Why am I interested in so many things, or why am I slowing down and only focusing on a few?
Well, rationally, you recognize you can't accomplish all the things you're attempting.
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm wearing Soren Kierkegaard's t-shirt, it's time to quote him.
Do it.
Well, I've been reading Purity of Heart is the will to do one good thing. Only one thing. Your whole life, you can do one thing.
If I had to pick one, I'd say eat. But that's just me. But yeah, no, I mean, it reminds me of Have you ever heard of Zeno's paradox? Where like
Yes.
to get from point A to
I
point
know.
B, you have to take the first step, But in order to do so, you'd have to go half the way there and half the way, and eventually you end up doing so much more or less that you end up stuck in place. And that's I try to avoid getting to that point.
Mm.
But I feel like people are intimidated by the things that they have to do or the things that they want to do, and they don't necessarily know where to start, and that is one of the most difficult things is just fucking getting started. Just start it anywhere, even if you don't fucking know what you're doing. Just taking
Yeah.
that first step and doing something at all. You know what I mean? Like this podcast, for instance, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I'll just meet people and talk to them, see what the hell happens. I just take that first step.
Yeah, I take that step. It's scary, but I've been doing music for 17 years, but each day I wake up and I'm about to sit in front of the keyboard and what am I going to do? It's like, I don't know. I'm just some primitive monkey banging on the keys. But if I get started, then things start happening and music and songs come out. It really is all about getting started and being willing to feel stupid and to do it wrong and to make a mistake. I've heard it described in psychological terms um, that you need to be comfortable in a state of infancy. So throughout our life, we go through infant, toddler, and then we become industrialists, autonomous. Um, but throughout life, when we start a new thing, we actually return to infant needs, where we don't know anything, and we require our environment to help us, other people to help us. I think that's why it can be really hard to do things by yourself. So
True.
somebody wants to get in good shape during quarantine, don't know how to do that. I mean, just walk to the gym or, some local gym or, they have some of the apartment gyms open these days where I'm at. And what is the person going to do? Just sit there and lift the dumbbell and feel like an idiot and go cry and never do it again.
Yeah.
It's actually like a terrifying risk to do anything, especially things for the first time.
It can be intimidating, but that's why uh, it's good to be an idiot sometimes. To not think about that kind of risk and just kind of fucking plunge into it. But back to what you're saying with respect to infancy, when you first start a project, that can ultimately be beneficial because if you come into a new situation and you have all these preconceived notions of how you think it's going to operate and how it should and how you want it to and all that, that can really fuck you up.
Yeah, and I'm thinking any type of activity becomes its own mini life form. It takes its own shape, takes its own life. Somehow you as the person, you just invoke it or spark the fire. But like I have a choice to sit in front of the keyboard and play and start. But when I do start, things just happen. It becomes its own process. And that process I notice is different from me. Like I have the ability to deliberate whether I play, but what I'm actually playing when I'm playing the keyboard is really quite free.
True. And I mean, creating music like that, in my opinion, has always been kind of like a form of meditation. Because you get into that zone and you're not fucking thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about, oh, I got these bills to pay or I gotta go mow the grass or whatever. You're just focused in that moment. And it is a form of meditation. And as a result of that or out of that can oftentimes come something magnificent and unexpected that you never, especially with respect to like jamming with other people.
Good conversation is like that too.
Yeah, like
And
right now.
oh yeah. And people often wonder what should I say in this job interview? What should I say to this guy that I like? They've lost the game at that point. What you say to the job interview person is what you want to say to them. What you say to the guy is what you want to say to him at that time. And you don't really know what that's going to be until you're there.
True. And you also need to say to them, especially with respect to job interviews, what they want to hear. That's sales. And sales, in my opinion, is often the antithesis of, I don't know, spirituality or meditation, things like that. But that's just because I rag on people that are salesmen, and partially because I'm a sales guy myself. You know, you have to sell stuff. You have to sell yourself, your product, your idea, your concept. Make that argument, and it's finding the balance, whether it's a job interview or anything else, between your preparation and your preconceived ideas of what you should do and within what context, and allowing yourself to be flexible within that moment to adjust accordingly. Some people are really good at planning. They can be systematic in their preparation for a particular thing, but they're not so good at adapting to the changing circumstances, and vice versa. But you have to kind of have a balance of both.
Yeah, and I'm becoming aware of how maybe I make a personal choice to be more free and improvisational. It might be part of my personality cluster, but it's certainly a commitment. Like, for example, I don't read sheet music, but I'm interested in jazz improvisational form. Right? That's like a choice that I made. And I was in a more sales-like position, but I left that position so I could have a different position that gave me more free time, so I could be more spontaneous with my music. But some people are certainly phenomenal planners. They can see out into the future. I'm thinking of good business people, and they have a real thirst for that. They really seem to enjoy that stuff. It's very foreign to me. I don't understand why.
Why what? Can you restate that real quick?
Why how somebody could enjoy thinking so much, or planning, or creating from like abstract forms. Like, some musicians plan everything out before they even start recording, but I just like wake up, have a glass of water, sit in the chair and think, oh my God, what am I going to do right now? Just hit the keyboard, and I just start hitting it and things start to work. And that's how I've worked my whole life.
Spontaneity.
Yeah, almost in the most extreme form.
I like that. To me, it's about finding the balance between the two. You know, I like rigid structure. I like to map everything out,
Yes.
and have a systematic process through which I can accomplish a goal. And music, as a musician, I've always been very spontaneous as well. I never really planned anything out. I never really mapped it out. I just kind of went after it. Whatever happens, happens. Hit record, and an hour, 6 days later, whenever, what happened, let's look at it. But I'm coming to find that being that way is motivating me to want to learn more about music theory. You know, I've been studying it a little bit, practicing with writing music, compositions of that nature, because I think it's a good balance. I like to look at both sides of the equation there, you know, balance it out. And I just feel like people get trapped sometimes when they're afraid of deviating from the way that they've always done something. But I feel as if it's it's much easier to deviate when you're being spontaneous than if you're a classical music theorist, composer, and you've got no time for improvisation. Fuck that. You want nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Go ahead.
it's easier for someone who's like a spontaneous musician, I feel, to appreciate the structure of, say, classical music than a hardcore classical music fan could appreciate some fucking crazy off the wall jazz piece, you know? It's a stereotype, but you see what I mean? It feels like it's easier to go one way than the other.
Yeah, and trace this opinion over the history of classical music in respect to jazz, that the classical musicians were the high form. They were the aristocratic artists. They were the 1%, right? They were cognitive. They were disciplined, educated. They were part of the lineage. Compare that to jazz, which was a poor man's music, ultimately coming from slave music, purely improvised, instinctual. Now, it took maybe, I would say, I'm roughly saying jazz started to be born around 19, well, I don't know the exact year, but
early 20th century.
Early 20th century, yeah. And then I think one person that really stands out is Art Tatum, the virtuoso jazz piano player. His recordings from the 60s, they are on point with Glenn Gould, or the best classical piano players. And from Art Tatum's purely improvisational approach, he has met the same type of compositional glory. You know, he can freely create those pieces that others have to meticulously detail. But Art, he showed up and he could just, I don't know if it's an approximation of those forms, because it's not like Art Tatum was trying to emulate a rich classical piece, but I would challenge any listener to listen to the greatest classical piano players and then put on some Art Tatum and just ask the question, there's a lot of interesting questions. Which musician has more freedom? Which one has more compositional excellence? Right? They're very different ways of approaching the same problem. But I think with Art Tatum he brought jazz to the level of being respected. And now, because nobody listens to jazz anymore, jazz is dead. The universities had to save it. Now it's an academic study. And now jazz is something that you study. And you can choose if you want Western music or jazz when you get your bachelor's or your PhD in music.
And then you end up working part-time at Home Depot. At the end. But no, I agree. Like, I feel as if it's really difficult sometimes for people who are classically trained, and that's all they do is play classical music and play the classics. And you go up to them and you say, "Here, can you improvise?" They'll tell you to go fuck yourself, because A, that's beneath them to an extent, and B, like, what the fuck are you even talking about? I don't know how to improvise. I read the music that's put before me. That's it.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. They're not as but other artists who aren't necessarily classically trained, or they don't strictly perform as classical musicians, aren't as restricted by the formalities of that school. You know, that's what I admire a lot about Miles Davis, is that he was classically trained. Dude went to Juilliard. He knew how to read music. He could write music for everyone. I mean, genius. But at the same time, he could improvise. He could encourage people to improvise at a certain point. He was a band leader. I mean, he was a drill sergeant with his band. You did it his way, and you made it happen that way. But at the same time, if he wrote something, some melody that was very abstract, he could take it and write it down. You know, that's the beauty of it, and it's very cool to see that interchange. But I feel like you shouldn't, ultimately, to surmise, you shouldn't be restricted by your discipline. You should allow yourself to, unless you want to be, but I mean, you should allow yourself to kind of grow and develop and deviate away from this is how it has to be done. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way I was trained to do it. Blah blah blah. You know.
It's that old adage: learn the rules so that you can break them.
Yes.
And I think of a lot of great musicians and creators. They happen to have a particular background. I'm thinking of Nietzsche at the University of Basel, and being very well trained in philology, but then abandoning it all. But it's clear in his writings, as free as they were, that he leveraged his studies, the very studies that he would attack and make fun of. And great people, they seem to have that foundation, that discipline, and they use it, but then they use it in a way towards their own freedom or their own invention. They use it in new ways, undiscovered ways. And I was also thinking too, maybe it's a great idea to have a schedule, to be very cognitive, very routine oriented about it. This is where I'm moving towards as I'm reading more Stoic philosophy. What if you create a schedule where every single day at the same time you get yourself to the studio, so that at that particular time you can be free? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, schedule your freedom, schedule your spontaneity.
Yes, absolutely.
Make time to improvise.
Yes. And there's something very enticing to me. That is where I am finding a lot of momentum, because I can wander through my 20s by being a free spirit, but maybe I'm not doing much because I'm just so free that I wander around in my sandals and spend all day at Burger King talking to the people, the homeless people, let's say. But
you end up going nowhere fast.
you end up sucking fumes under the highway.
Hey, and if that's what you want to do, I'd like to emphasize this right now to my audience, to our audience. If you want to suck fumes under the highway, you just go ahead and do that. I'm all about it. Just don't tell me that's what I should be doing. Don't try to get me to do it with you. If you want to invite me, that's fine. I'll tell you to go fuck off. But if you want to suck fumes under the highway, man, do it up, baby. And be grateful you live in a nation where you could participate in things like that. You know, that's great.
Be good at it.
Yeah, get the most out of it, man.
Yeah, if you want to be a drug addict, be a damn good one.
Yeah.
And really enjoy it.
That's another topic. Drug addicts, in my opinion, are an issue only really to other people. If you could have a drug addict who was very much on top of their shit, very, very successful, they're not asking mom and dad for money, not losing the place to live, not overdosing all the fucking time. If you could do drugs responsibly, for like heroin, for instance, and you know you're holding down a 6-figure job, you got a nice mortgage, you know you got cars, do it up. But once you start to inconvenience other people with your antics, that's when it's like people start telling you got to clean up your act, son. I can't be giving you money all the time. I can't be picking you up from jail. We can't be giving you naloxone every other day, you know. But that's the thing that I've tried to emphasize. It's a random segue here, but you know, there's nothing wrong with drug addicts until they start to inconvenience people in some way. Society, you know, cost us money as taxpayers, or borrowing money from mom and dad, etc. So.
Yeah, and what is best for other people is to take care of yourself. And everything should be permissible to the individual up to the point where it is no longer good for them. Once it's in excess, then it becomes self-harm, and then by extension it injures the community. So it's not the substance, it's not the behavior. In the United States, we have this type of religious argument. It's like this belief that substances have power and control, and that they are in themselves good or bad. But they're really just material things that we use, and it comes down to the individual. Like, how many people say that you can be possessed by alcoholism? We call them spirits, because when you ingest them, you become, or you're taking in the spirits, or some type of supernatural power or something. But I just really think things should be permissible. We need to take the power back. You're permitted to do anything, but as long as it's not up to the point where it's no longer good for you, that's when you should stop. And maybe that means you should never drink, or maybe that means you can drink a fair amount. You know, that's up for the individual to decide. What do you think of that?
I'm okay with it if it's not good for you. You know, if people want to drink themselves into fucking stupor or overdose, do it up. But stop wasting government resources to bring people back that want to overdose every 2 weeks, you know? Like, a local jail here in my community will give you Narcan or naloxone, the overdose medication, when you leave the jail. You know?
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's ridiculous. But I can understand where people are coming from. Like, they don't want to see people die or overdose or get hurt or whatever. But I don't really care, you know. If that's what people want to do with their lives, I support it. Do it up. Just, you know, stay out of my way, you know.
Society's in this dance where it's about rescuing a person, and
Yeah.
then the person continues, and it's just kind of a nightmare, actually. But I read a lot of harm reduction based addiction material, like Dr. Stanton Peele, and there's some pretty solid reasoning and evidence that if you have a heroin addicted population, the best societal response for that is to provide clean needles, heroin if they need it, places to dispose of their dirty needles, and psychological support if they would like to get off heroin, if they think they're using too much of it. Those type of harm reduction programs ultimately, well, they have lower imprisonment rates, and it actually curbs addictive drifts in society, as addiction is a societal, well, it's an interaction between an individual and a society. Often here in our country, it's blamed towards the individual, but we're trying to counter that by saying that drugs have spiritual power, that alcohol can possess you, it's demonic, and it's a disease. And that's just a way to say it's not the individual's fault, which might be the right message, or at least part of the correct response, because we are blaming individuals. We put individuals in prison for having drug paraphernalia, but both parties are dancing here, the individual and the society. And addiction is caused by societal drifts. And society often doesn't want to take care of its role in it.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm all about making the resources available to people who want to clean up their act, who want to get clean, get sober, start out on a new path. You know, those resources do exist, and people should take advantage of them. But what I disagree with is, you know, me sitting over here saying, hey, I'm sober. This is the way to live. This is how you should live too. You need to follow this societal guideline with respect to how to live your life, you know? Just because it works for me to not do drugs doesn't mean that that's your way of approaching it. Everybody defines success differently. Everybody chooses to do things differently with their lives. If that's what you want to do it up. It's not going to work for me, but if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But the accountability factor is huge, like you said, you know. We want to place an emphasis on the fact that it's not your fault the way that you are. And unless you have, in my opinion, 100% personal accountability, you're fucked. You know, you're not going to go anywhere. You know, you got to take responsibility for your actions, period.
Yeah. Like I think of the Jewish people in the Bible, and like God like destroyed them over and over and over. But their response to that was always, what did I do, God? What did we do? It may be that it's society's fault. It may be that alcohol has some type of possessive power. But I argue there's, just like you do, there's only one response, and that is 100% accountability for what you're doing. I'm choosing to be an addict. I am an addict. That's what I am defining myself to be. I take complete responsibility for everything I do.
Whether I think it's easier to achieve accountability initially, say it's my fault, and then look at it like, oh, I guess these substances do potentially contain things that can cause me to behave in a certain way. To view it that way, as opposed to viewing it the inverse, where it's like, these substances make me behave this way, that's why I did that. You know, like that really diminishes your accountability. Like you got to start with yourself first, because if you don't, like, why are you even doing this?
Yeah, it all starts with you. It has to. That's the only thing you have access to, is how it begins in yourself.
Right.
And this is not good because I'm becoming a stoic person now. I was a Nietzschean, and I was afraid that reading Marcus Aurelius Meditations every day would change my opinion. And it is, because now I'm arguing that you're so in control of yourself at all times. Hey, we have a discussion from the chat. I know you have
nice.
I wanted to share this. This person follows me, comes and visits my stream a lot, so I appreciate the discussion. Well, the person says, it's hard for drugs to not bleed out into other areas of your life. I think that's a part of addiction. It takes over everything. It becomes a singularity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of an anomaly. The guy that has a very career and family oriented, doing extremely well for himself or herself, and, you know, just loves to do drugs. A bunch of very, very hardcore addictive drugs. They don't necessarily align like that. You don't see a lot of successful drug addicts. And the individuals that come to mind that were successful drug addicts were people like Kurt Cobain. You know, he was very successful at what he did, and he just wanted to be this, you know, all-out junkie millionaire. And, you know, there were some other things going on that needed to be addressed, obviously, because it just didn't work out. But,
yeah, I'm also thinking of like Marvin Gaye and his sex addiction.
Yeah.
That destroyed his life. But here he is, famous for Let's Get It On.
He made it work for himself. That's fine.
There's
It's
a
it's difficult.
there's a dichotomy, a split.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those creative people have that split. The secret drug addiction, or a lot of business owners, they can be more productive when they take some cocaine at the end of a day or on the weekend. They get a lot of shit done.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Athletes, they do that too. They get, onto different type of substances.
It just makes you weak. Your dependence on anything else really to achieve your goals.
I agree. I really agree with that.
But I mean, you could argue like, oh, my dependence on reading is necessary for me to achieve my goals. But I'm saying like substances, things of that nature.
Use your dependence, and the question is, what should you be dependent on? Cocaine, other people, personal code of conduct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of like, can you operate in the absence of that thing? That's the dependence, in my opinion. It's one thing to be like dependent upon it, but to become personally inoperable in the absence of that thing, that's when it becomes an issue. That's dependent. It's like, I need this in order to feel right. I need this in order to function, and that's weak.
What are the things that you can depend on that can't be taken away?
True.
And that's a question I asked myself during that whole coronavirus quarantine. Like, okay, if the world's going to burn down, what should I focus on? Because I'm going to keep going. I'm going to adapt, like we started talking earlier. Bringing it full circle. Adaptation. I wanted to adapt. I wasn't going to let the world burning stop me. So I had to choose different dependencies.
Good dependencies.
Do you have to run here?
I do, yeah, actually, and I'm not surprised that we probably could have continued this conversation indefinitely, but, this is part of a continuing series where we philosophize at length about a variety of issues. I mean, I should have transcribed it. We covered the full gamut today. We got into drugs, we got into music, we got into personal accountability, we got into society's breakdown. We can go anywhere, and we can expound any one of these topics at any point, expound upon them. But could you take a moment for the sake of my podcast and expound upon who you are as an artist and what your YouTube page is and everything, and how people can find you and what you've been working on?
I go by J-Bone. I operate a musical universe called Drift Like Clouds, and I release albums, I make music videos. Part of Drift Like Clouds is reading philosophy every day on stream, creating a virtual hangout for people, and that is me. That's not me, but that's what I do.
That is he, for now at least. And I will link all that good stuff in the description of my podcast, and you can access it there. And Mr. Bone, thank you very much for the discussion as always. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and to be continued, man.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Well, I'll see you later. Bye now.
Bye.